Good morning and welcome back to Zandvoort for the first weekend back after the summer break. It's the Dutch Grand Prix, round 15 of the calendar. I'm Harry Benjamin. Alongside me in the commentary box is reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling as we get set for the final hour of running before qualifying. Our eyes and ears on the ground, strutting her stuff. Up and down the pit lane is Rosanna Tennant. Good morning, Rosanna. Crucial question. How did you perform in the McLaren pub quiz last night?
I think we were middle of the road, 5th place. Andrew Benson excelling himself, our teammate Lorraine McKenna, who does all the live reporting for you on the BBC Sport website. Absolutely brilliant addition to the team, but just not enough to topple the greats. But it was a pleasure to take part, and it's the taking part that counts, Harry.
Big up Lorraine, but it definitely wasn't, 5 out of 5. There were at least 10 teams, yeah?
Yeah. I think there might have even been 11. But look, it's a could-do-better situation. So next year, we live and we learn.
That's because you didn't have Abby and I on the team. That's why.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Why.
We were missing some vital ingredients, and we will do better in the future.
Glad to hear it. But look, I mean, yesterday, in terms of track action, Rosanna, you were debating to and fro whether to get your coat out. What are we talking today? From what I've seen, puffy white clouds in the sky.
It's looking pretty nice right now. A lot of blue sky, a few clouds here and there. But when I drew back the curtains this morning, torrential rain, Harry, and it was so wet on the way into the circuit. Lots of people purchasing umbrellas, myself included. I got a very pretty pink one to use over the course of the weekend, but it's not needed right now. It's really dry and it's really breezy, so it's starting to dry up around the track, but down here in the pit lane it's still incredibly greasy, and I don't know if you can hear above the noise of the DJ in the crowd, the leaf blowers are already in action. The teams are out in the pit boxes trying to dry as best they can all the little areas that the cars will stop in, because it's so slippery and there is no sunshine in the pit lane. It's completely in shade, so it's a little bit chilly, a little bit breezy, but I think it could make for an interesting session. We had so many stoppages yesterday. FP3 is going to be really important for the drivers to prepare themselves for qualifying later.
It certainly is. Thanks, Rosanna. We'll come back to you throughout the session. We are indeed nestled in the dunes here, right by the North Sea coastline. We're about 35 kilometres west of Amsterdam, and McLaren's Lando Norris has been the man to beat so far. Aston Martin had a strong Friday too, right, with Fernando Alonso. Ferrari are searching for some answers. Max Verstappen with some work to do as well in front of his home fans, but we're just a minute or so away from FP3 getting underway, so we shall see who lays down the marker before it really counts. Abby Pulling is alongside me, as I mentioned. We spoke yesterday, Abby, and Rosanna mentioned it there, how challenging this track is, and we saw a fair few drivers going off into the gravel, some finding the barriers.
Yeah, there was one or two 360s from 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton as well. So it's really testing everyone, this circuit and the conditions. Obviously this morning it's still, as Rosanna said, still drying a little bit. So the first few minutes of the session, we'll probably see a little bit of action again, maybe. But yeah, the run up to turn 1 in shade, it's still damp on the braking there. Everywhere else, I imagine, is pretty much dry, but there is always the place that takes the longest to dry.
It certainly is, but I think, as we have been saying, it will be dry for today. Max Verstappen is just walking around with his overalls down by his waist, having a chat with some of his engineers before he gets in the car. And George Russell not in his car yet either. So this is what we tend to see with pre-practice 3. We don't get a massive influx of people on the track straight away, except for those who are in need of getting some crucial track time back, such as Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls. He was plagued with issues yesterday, barely even got a lap in before he had to pull up on the side of the road with issues on board his Racing Bulls, but he is sat inside his car, so he'll be looking to get out and make up some lost time in this final practice session. Let's bring you up to speed with how the standings lie coming into round 15. Just 10 races to go now until we come to the conclusion of this 2025 season, and it certainly looks like it is a battle between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, the two contenders for the Drivers' Championship. we will get a new drivers' champion unless something catastrophic happens. It's Piastri who has 9 points, the advantage over Lando Norris. Then comes Max Verstappen, who is 88 points behind Norris. George Russell and Charles Leclerc make up the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship. And over in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren are pretty much away and at the finish line already. They have 559 points, almost 300 points clear of second place Ferrari. Then comes Mercedes, Red Bull and Williams leading the charge in the midfield, but they have got company now, close company, with Aston Martin and Sauber looking resurgent. They lie 7th ahead of Racing Bulls, Haas and Alpine, currently 10th and last. The light has gone green at the end of the pit lane for those who wish to do a sync up. It's 59 minutes and 15, 14, 13, 12 seconds remaining. Bit of work going on Nico Hulkenberg's Sauber, and I believe, Rosanna, you're outside McLaren.
Maybe Nico Hulkenberg's running a little late because he was on his scooter when I was on the way to the pit lane. So maybe it's Nico causing up the hold up. But yes, I'm outside McLaren, and Oscar Piastri's been sitting in the cockpit of his car for quite some time. One of the mechanics just holding a cooling device, directing it into the cockpit to keep him nice and cool. Lando Norris a little bit later than Piastri. He's just got into his car and he climbed in and then just stood for a little bit. And I thought, oh, I wonder what he's thinking. I always wonder that, what are they thinking? Are they even maybe saying a little prayer? Who knows? But he is now in. They're bolting the headrest into the car, making sure that's nicely attached. And we should get underway soon. But no one, as I can see, making a beeline for the pit exit, sitting tight at the moment, Harry.
Yeah, that's the thing with these practice sessions, aren't we? With the tyre allocations that they have, no one wants to quite go out straight away and use up their rubber. Carlos Sainz just standing to the side of his car, talking with his engineer, headset on, having a bit of a briefing before he gets in the car. Fernando Alonso, though, has just put his helmet on and with his trainer just doing up the helmet there, the hands device on, as he then walks on over towards his garage and will make his way to his car. It was a good day yesterday for Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, wasn't it, Abby? I mean, the McLarens, we know they're strong and it is nip and tuck between Norris and Piastri right now, but a good Friday for Alonso. That will give him some good confidence for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the Aston Martins are looking really, really strong this weekend, but on the other side of the garage, not so good as Lance Straw's had a chassis change overnight. He had a really big impact in turn 3 yesterday in FP2. So a lot of work on one side of the garage. The other side of the garage with Fernando is looking really fast. But I'm not surprised that drivers aren't rushing to get in the cars at the start of this practice session, as conditions aren't ideal. It's not worth the risk going into qualifying later this afternoon to risk the damage in the likes of turn 1, where it is still a few wet patches. Although the RB of Isaac Hadjar, I believe, has just gone out on circuit.
Yeah, and he's gone out on those intermediate tyres, but it's certainly not really intermediate conditions, that is for sure.
So he'll just be doing an install lap. So after an engine change he had yesterday, he went out and he broke down instantly. So here he'll be on the intermediates, although the track is dry, just to make sure that the engine is running fine. I imagine he'll dive straight back into the pit lane. It is just a procedural thing that we do even in the junior categories. So a bit boring for the driver itself, driving around, making sure it goes up and down the gears, but very important for the team.
Yeah, not a mad rush to get out on track for this final session before that all-important qualifying later on. But so far throughout the weekend, we are expecting the McLarens to be the ones in contention for pole position and the win on Sunday. So far, it's Lando Norris who has the slight edge over his teammate Oscar Piastri. Piastri, though, is the one ahead in the championship. 9 points clear coming into this first Grand Prix back after F1 summer break, with just 10 races to go now till we go to the conclusion in Abu Dhabi. Hadjar then has done his install lap and is back in, and he's just lined up right outside his pit box. Rosanna? Who's Rosanna? Rosanna.
She's here too. Double trouble, Roanna and Rosanna. Kimi Antonelli's just headed out on track as well, but you're right, Isack Hadjar just made his way back into the pits, and yesterday was a difficult day for him and the Racing Bulls team. They saw a problem with the sensors during FP1, so they decided to change the battery and the power unit in between the two practice sessions, and then he was sitting in the car for quite some time at the beginning of FP2 talking with his engineer Per Hamlin and a lot of other engineers coming in to the garage and standing around the cockpit. There was a lot of plugging and unplugging of wires and a lot of shaking of the head from Isack Hadjar. He finally went out and then he was told to stop out on track, and that's because they had seen more sensor issues with the battery, so he was told to stop as a precaution. So good to see him back out now, but I'm sure the team will be trying to make sure that those little niggles don't reappear during this session, and more importantly during qualifying in the race.
Yeah, so frustrating, isn't it, Abby, as a driver, when there are these kind of technical issues with the car during these all-important practice sessions, when especially after what feels like a long summer break, you're just desperate to get some more laps in.
And I think the big thing with this sport as well, there's just so many variables and so much out of the driver's control, things like that. Isack, of course, it's not ideal for him, but he needs to make sure he gets it out of his head and focuses on the job in hand and the driving. It can be really frustrating when you've missed out on so much vital running. But he didn't seem too happy with the track condition at the moment. As he boxed, he did mention that the track is still green, so that rain that we've had overnight and this morning has made the track extra not grippy for the drivers, as all the running yesterday they would have laid lots of rubber down, which would have made the track really nice for the rain just to wash it away.
Yeah, that is the thing, this circuit. I mean, it is unforgiving. It's got a low grip surface, the gusty winds, all of that combined with the possibility of some mixed weather on Sunday as well makes it, well, for quite an enticing prospect for us at least watching on, which is what Max Verstappen is doing from the garage. He's looking at Kimi Antonelli, Nico Hülkenberg, Lando Norris, Lance Stroll, and now Oscar Piastri, who are the cars that have made their way out onto the track. So too for Gabriel Bortoleto. 53 minutes and 2 seconds remaining. Now we have Abby Pulling here, currently racing in GB3, just off the back of a podium last week. You won here at Zandvoort last year. You're the reigning F1 Academy champion. It would be remiss not to ask you some questions throughout this final practice session. So if you do indeed have any questions for Abby that you would like her to answer, you can send them in multiple ways. You can, I think, Abby, you put a tweet out as well. You can go and look at that. Or if you just want to use the hashtag BBCF1, we will find it. We also have an email address. You can email your question. It's f1@bbc.co.uk, and we'll try and get through the best ones throughout the course of the next 52 minutes or so. I've had quite an intense one come in straight away for you, Abby. This is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? That lovely question that we all love to answer.
Well, 5 years ago, I don't know if I would have seen myself here. I'll say that. So
right here in the Five Lights Sport commentary box.
Yes, exactly.
Dreams do come true, Abby. Dreams really do come true.
Delighted, absolutely delighted. No, I'm joking. So to predict where I'm going to be in the next 5 years is really tough to say, to be honest. I think things never go as you plan. But just continuing up the ladder of motorsport, driving in fast cars. Who knows what that will be? I'd like to do a world championship, of course, that would be nice. Formula E is quite exciting at the moment as well, so maybe go the electric route. But who knows? Formula One, Formula E, WEC, anywhere.
Yeah, you've got a bit of a Formula E role, haven't you, with the Nissan team as well, working with them. Karthik has actually asked a good question. We'll squeeze this one in. Morning, Abby. Loving the radio energy at this hour. As you gear up, as you're currently doing the 2025 GB3 season, what's one lesson from your F1 Academy title run that you've brought into the cockpit for this year? I suppose, what's your biggest your biggest learning curve maybe coming into this year off the back of F1 Academy?
I would say that the thing that I learned last year was being able to reset and compartmentalise each race weekend. Of course, yesterday we were talking about momentum and the momentum that Lando has, but to be able to keep that momentum, it doesn't just happen by accident. There's a whole mental process that goes on, and after each race being like, okay, I mean, that was an amazing weekend, but the next one I've got to keep working and start again, go from the ground up again, and that goes for the same if it was a bad weekend. Okay, that weekend was a bad weekend, that doesn't mean the next one's going to be bad. So I thought that was really important, and this year I've had a few bad weekends, let's say, but it was nice to end on the podium at Brands Hatch. But again, that goes forward. Okay, I'm not going to get a podium the next one. I still need to keep working and keep building on what I've done so far.
I suppose that ties in quite nicely with all this chat around, I almost feel like we can't say it anymore, the M word, momentum and this kind of thing, and how much you feel that is a valid thing that a driver goes through. The question was put to Lando Norris. He is in a good swing of things at the moment, despite being on the back foot when it comes to points in the Drivers' Championship. He's looked stronger so far this weekend, but not by much. How much is that a real thing, or is it all just per driver and how they see it as a mentality state?
I would say, it depends on the driver, but I think it's just a massive mentality aspect, and each driver is different. Maybe some drivers, they ride the wave, and some drivers kind of go off of what I've just said, where have a really big reset between each race weekend and go again. I think everyone has their own strategies, but it seems to be working so far for Lando. He's been really fast, jumping back in the car this weekend in FP1 and 2. We'll see how FP3 goes. But I mean, the McLarens always look pretty fast this year.
Well, 48 minutes and 58 seconds now. Gabriel Bortoleto is coming around the final corner, the reigning Formula 2 champion, fastest in the first sector and the last sector on the hard tyre, and goes fastest with a 1:12.966. Colapinto is second with Hulkenberg third. Antonelli was out there on the medium tyre in fourth. He's now back out, I believe, from the pit lane. Let's head down to Rosanna Tennant.
Harry, I'm outside the Red Bull garages. Slow morning for Max Verstappen. He is nowhere near ready to get into the car. He's still got his race overalls pulled down and a cap on, so no sign of the helmet just yet. But on the other side, the other Red Bull garage, Yuki Tsunoda's just being strapped into his car. So it looks like Tsunoda will be the first of the Red Bull cars out on track. And it's still nice and sunny, Harry. I'm just going to keep these weather updates coming for you. I think we might get away with it, because we were meant to have the rain later on today, but I think it's come early, and so maybe we'll have a dry qualifying session later on too.
Yeah, well, let's see. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you, Rosanna, but I would like a little bit of mixed up rain, I think, for qualifying. That would be quite nice for us. But certainly right now, as Rosanna was saying, the sun is shining, white puffy clouds above this Zandvoort circuit. 4.259 kilometres, 14 turns, 10 that go to the right, 4 that go to the left as it winds itself through the Dutch dunes that mark the North Sea coastline. This is the sound of Nico Hulkenberg about to go fastest with a 1:12.612. So the track ramping up as well with every lap that goes by. We've had a little bit of support action so far today in the form of the F1 Academy qualifying earlier, and we also have the likes of Porsche Supercup here as well. So that can often actually prove sometimes more of a hindrance, because they tend to throw up quite a lot of gravel onto the track, which then takes a while to clear for the next class of car that is running. But just 5 cars then out on track at the moment. Gasly's just gone up there. He's on the intermediate tyre, so doing an installation lap there. Now, Abby, you were mentioning there how you've had a few tough races this year in your GB3 campaign, and it's often when you're struggling most that maybe you actually learn the most as well. But if you're somebody like Franco Colapinto, who is currently sitting third right now, but has had a tough reintroduction to Formula One, and then your boss is coming out with some pretty blunt comments. Flavio Briatore in the team principal's press conference yesterday, when asked about Colapinto and him retaining his seat for next year, he said, I've seen everything already. I don't need to see anything anymore. For this driver, it's very difficult to cope with this car. And for a young driver to put in Formula One, maybe it was not the timing to have Franco in Formula One. Maybe he needs another year or two to be a part of Formula One. I mean, that must be pretty tough to hear as a driver. How on earth do you go about recovering from that?
Yeah, it's not an ideal situation for Franco, and I think that as a driver to perform at the highest level, you really need that support system around you and a team that really believes in you, whether it's tight-knit, your trainers and manager and so on and so forth, or even the team bosses. You need to have people around you that really put you on a pedestal and really respect you, and it seems at Alpine there's a little bit of a lack of that, and even at Red Bull, of course, what we saw with Liam Lawson as well, only doing the 2 races. I think the team needs to have a driver and stick with them and nurture them and really believe in them and outwardly say, we believe that you can achieve this, but also how do we go about achieving this? I mean, I don't sit behind the scenes and what's going on. Of course, that's a whole other story. We can only see what's said in the press conferences and so on and so forth. But you really want your team to champion you.
Well, this is the thing, Rosanna, isn't it? It's about nurturing talent, and well, that's not something they did with the previous incumbent of that seat, Jack Doohan, either. So, Flavio's a brutal man. It's a brutal business, but this was his decision at the end of the day to promote Colapinto.
It certainly was, and actually it's quite tough seeing Jack Doohan walking around a paddock, obviously just wearing the team top and a pair of jeans every weekend, of course wishing he was still in the seat. But as you've been saying, for Franco Colapinto, really tricky. But it was quite interesting, wasn't it? In FP1 he was right at the back of the field, and then Flavio Briatore had the press conference in between FP1 and FP2, and suddenly Franco Colapinto finds himself in P9. So who knows, maybe he needed a little rocket.
Sometimes you do, though, don't you? You just need a little bit of a kick, a little bit of pressure, and then suddenly you're there, aren't you? So it's something, that's for sure, that will certainly be on Franco Colapinto's mind. Sorry, Roseanne, did you have anything more to add? Or?
No, not at all.
Sorry.
I mean,
I had a voice in my ear suddenly and I got distracted.
So did I.
Well, it's nice to hear I'm not the only one hearing voices in my head.
Good to know that we're aligned, eh?
Nothing like that. The 5 Live team, always aligned. I tell you what, though, are we aligned? Because we've had a question come in. This is from an Alice Powell. She has asked, has producer Joe brought in cake for the team? Producer Paddy did last time. Producer Joe, have we got any cake for Abby? No? That's shocking.
I'm a bit heartbroken. Is this a bit of favouritism from the 5 Live?
If I'm correct, in my memory, I believe producer Paddy brought in a rather lovely lemon drizzle. And I, unfortunately, Alice, producer Joe, has not delivered on that front.
It's
which
probably
is shocking.
for the best, though. I've got my racing driver status to uphold, and lemon drizzle I don't think is on the itinerary.
No, to keep your peak athleticism, no lemon drizzle for us, unfortunately. Right, 42 minutes and 40 seconds remain. Bortoletto is currently the quickest driver out on the track, having set a 1:12.014 on the hard tyre. Antonelli is now back out there on the medium tyre lap. Again, a man who found himself in the gravel trap in FP1, making up for lost time, but he's up there in second right now. Hulkenberg 6/10 adrift in third. Then comes Colapinto, who've been talking about, who did actually have a better weekend last time out in Hungary. It's just a shame it was on a weekend where Alpine, their performance was generally poor, but it was Colapinto who did manage to outrace Pierre Gasly on that one and have a better race this time around. Did he out-qualify him? That was the question. Franco Colapinto qualified 14th last time out in Hungary. Pierre Gasly actually was 16th, so it was a good weekend for Colapinto on that time. Gasly's currently 5th, and they are the only drivers to have set any kind of lap time. Everybody has been out for at least one lap, with the exception of the 2 Red Bulls, Verstappen and Tsunoda. Racing Bulls is Liam Lawson, and the Mercedes of George Russell, as Lance Stroll now goes to the top of the times. Fastest of anybody in the final sector in that green Aston Martin, rebuilt overnight, or a change of chassis after a big crash in Hugenholtz, turn 3, the banked corner that goes to the left-hand side. Stroll has stuck on the soft tyre for that one. So looking to try and repay his mechanics who put in a strong shift last night. They actually broke the curfew to get that car fixed in time, and we'll see what Alonso has got as well on the soft tyre. He's just gearing up now for his flying lap round the final corner, the turn 14 of 18 degrees of banking, as he then rockets down the start finish straight, hits the brakes. We've seen a lot of cars go off into the gravel there. Not such the case for Fernando Alonso, who negotiates Tarzan, the right-hander of turn 1, then heads to turn 2, a slight right-hand kink. Before you know it, he's taking the high line through Hugenholtz to 3, and now you are weaving yourself to the right, to the left, then slightly to the right again through 4, 5 and 6 before a touch on the brakes through the right-hander of turn 7. It's fastest of anybody through the first sector on that soft tyre, comparing directly to his teammate Stroll. Antonelli's just gone to the top of the time, still out there on the medium tyre. Fernando Alonso round turns 8 and 9, a double right-hander, and then back on himself to the left through 10. Bit of traffic to his left-hand side. I think that was his teammate Lance Stroll. Gets nicely out of the way over the crest towards turn 11, the braking zone for the chicane. Gravel to the inside, through the left-hand side for Alonso, onto the throttle, personal best in the middle sector. Just 2 more corners to go now for Fernando Alonso. 13 of Kumho, then it's 18 degrees of banking. The car pitched almost up on its side as he then slingshots his way over the line and puts in a 1:11.082. Alonso to the top of the times.
Yeah, and that lap there, you could really see on any of the big accelerations for Alonso, the rear of the car squirming as well. So I think it goes to show that the track isn't quite in the window that these drivers want it to be at the moment. The track is just going to be getting better and better, not quite getting all the performance he wants on that soft tyre, although going to the top of the times for now. Still a bit of a ways to go, I think, in this session.
Yeah, and it is certainly, but the last bit of track action before we get that all-important qualifying later on this afternoon. Certainly though, Lando Norris, who is now out there on the soft tyre, so getting some qualifying simulations in at the moment, looking very pacey, and has had just that small edge over teammate Piastri so far.
Yeah, but he did have a little squirm of the rear end again into turn 1 as we go on board through my favourite corner, turn 7. Really high speed 2 collection of corners here, into then a heavy braking for T9. Make sure you don't run too wide like we saw Hamilton yesterday do a 360. Prep for turn 10 and focus on the exit, as down here is a really long and important straight.
Certainly is, as Lando Norris goes up the gears, 4/10 up on Alonso in the middle sector, negotiates the chicane nicely. Bit of traffic to his inside in the form of the Aston Martin. This will see Norris go to the top of the times round the final corner, getting up to speeds of over 270 kilometres an hour as he heads towards the start-finish line and goes 8/10 clear at the top of the times. Lando Norris fastest in FP3 with just over half an hour to go. Now, we expect the McLarens to be quick and away from the rest of the field, but Fernando Alonso in particular in that Aston Martin has looked strong. He had a really good Friday yesterday, and so far things are looking decent for Aston Martin off the back of a good Hungarian Grand Prix for them as well before the summer break. And if we bring in BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benton at 5 Live's Race Centre, I mean, Andrew, can we believe this as a genuine step of improvement for Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso? How genuine is the pace for that car that we've seen so far this weekend?
Well, he laughed yesterday when he was asked whether he could compete with the McLarens for the front row, having split them in P2 yesterday. But he did say that it looked like the Mercedes, Ferraris and Red Bulls were not that far away, was his phrase, and maybe they could compete with them. I mean, let's not forget that Alonso and Stroll qualified 5th and 6th in Hungary. This is not a dissimilar circuit to Hungary. It's the cars run in very high downforce trim. Drag is not a real problem here. And the Aston Martin in this in this downforce configuration is pretty competitive. Let's not forget that they were last on the grid in Belgium the week before Hungary, and I think most people expect them to have another difficult weekend in Monza next weekend. But there's no reason, after qualifying 5th and 6th in Hungary, if they can do that there's no reason why they can't be in a similar sort of position this weekend in Zandvoort.
Yeah, so there's genuine optimism there. If you look at last year, both Aston Martins qualified inside the top 10, so we'll see how they get on. Andrew, just lastly, 5th place in the pub quiz. I expected a bit more.
It was disappointing. Lorraine McKenna absolutely rocks the music round, I have to say, but we got a bit tripped up because you had to. A lot of the songs you had to do, like Rihanna featuring Jay-Z.
That's how they get you.
We'd left off the featuring bit, which, even though she knew it, I can't claim. I think I probably only knew about 2 of the songs myself. But I was quite good on the general knowledge round, I have to say, immodestly. I may have behaved not at my best a couple of times.
Did you have a problem with some of the questions?
No, I didn't. Unlike with the Williams quiz in Hungary, my main focus of the weekend was trying to get David Croft to Sky to have as many shots as I possibly could. I was quite successful at that.
Oh, that is fantastic! Who won?
Some team of some journalists that you don't know.
Oh, okay, fine. So dear old Crofty didn't take the win then on that one.
No, thankfully.
All right, Andrew, good to see. Working hard as always. Thank you very much for that. In 5 Live Race Centre, I'm sure we'll be back with him at some point throughout the rest of this session. 34 minutes and 52 seconds remain. Norris is fastest, and Piastri in the last couple of moments has done his run on the soft tyre, just over half a tenth of a second between them. Piastri second though, and then on the medium tyre, Verstappen has now gone out and set a lap time to put himself third. Then comes Alonso, Antonelli fifth, Behrman is sixth. Behrman actually having a decent run of things so far this weekend. Stroll, Hadjar, Ocon and Bortoletti, the top 10. Then comes Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, the top 12, as Leclerc actually just rockets himself up into 6th spot on the medium tyres, make that 7th as Russell just manages to clinch the spot ahead of him. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton, Abby, who had a couple of spins yesterday, as you referenced earlier on. And especially off the back of a really tough Hungarian Grand Prix, the pace so far hasn't looked great for Ferrari. Yesterday, Charles Leclerc described them as needing some sort of miracle to try and improve there. So Hamilton then in need of a good weekend.
Yeah, Hamilton struggling to get to grips with this Ferrari around the Zandvoort circuit, and yeah, he's in desperate need of a good weekend. He's really struggled. Of course, we heard the comments that he made back out at Budapest, but he's just now gone a tenth quicker than his teammate, or half a tenth quicker than his teammate on the medium compounds. So I think from FP1 to FP2, the team listened to Charles, and a slight miracle happened, going from being well outside the top 10 to solidifying themselves within the top 10 in FP2. So there was definitely a jump in performance. Whether we will see another jump going into today and qualifying will be another question. They seem to be improving and listening to the drivers, which is the main thing, but not the performance that they would be wanting.
Well, still gelling after those medium tyre laps, Rosanna. Leclerc 9th, and Hamilton has just put himself up into 8th.
Yeah, and I think Lewis was happy to be back in the car yesterday and made progress between the two sessions. I think he's confident on his long run pace, but it's the single lap pace that he wants to improve on. But I think it was just good to see him back in a car yesterday after those comments in Hungary. It all became rather depressing before the summer break, didn't it? So nice to see him back in the car, kind of back where he belongs. And he was talking on Thursday about going back to his core beliefs, which I assume are not thinking that he's useless, because that was so strange to hear those really negative phrases coming out of the 7-time world champion's mouth.
Yeah, it was headline news, wasn't it, what he was saying, almost saying that they should get another driver in because he wasn't performing well, and it was a tough Hungarian Grand Prix, a track that Lewis is so good at, coming to a track where actually he's never won at this circuit, because it was only introduced sort of at the end of Lewis's dominant era with his best qualifying result here, second, and his best race here, second, when the track came on to the calendar back in 2021. Last year, qualified 11th in the Mercedes and raced his way up into 8th spot. So let's keep an eye on how those Ferraris continually improve. This is the sound of Max Verstappen you're hearing at the moment on the medium tyre, going for another run, coming into the chicane, about a 10th and a half down on Norris's time at the moment, but Norris is on the soft. So again, we never quite know fuel loads in practice, so always taking things with a slight pinch of salt. But as Leclerc puts himself up into 4th spot, let's just see where this puts Max Verstappen to the line now, up to 3rd, Abby.
Yeah, I think it was a fairly solid lap. You saw in the chicane, turn 13, he really sent it over the curb and had a wheel dipped in the gravel there to hook him round. I've noticed over the weekend, actually, there's been quite a bit of understeer throughout them collection of corners, so him trying to figure out his own way around that. But also notably, I think Isaac Hadjar, I mean, there's not been too many soft tyre runners so far, but in P4, 4 tenths adrift from the McLarens after a tough day yesterday, so nice to see him being able to jump back in the car and get right on the pace straight away.
That's the sound of Hamilton. We've got some more questions coming in for Abby. Hashtag BBC F1, or you can email us f1@bbc.co.uk, and also on Abby's Twitter or X, or however you like to call it. From Emily. Here we go. Talk about the music round in the McLaren pub quiz yesterday. What music is on your pump-up playlist, Abby, if you have one?
I think this would take people by surprise, but last year, the song that took me to the championship, this was what got me so pumped ready, was Tainted Love by Soft Cell and Gwen Stefani, Sweet Escape.
Oh,
like them two, like I'd play them as soon as I've heard them, like I'm ready.
Okay, I can back that. That's decent. So you watch just those 2 songs on repeat?
No, not necessarily. No, there was other songs.
Well, I tell you what, Emily has said top 3 tracks if you're creating a playlist. I'm assuming you've got those 2. One more track from you.
I'm going to get a lot of questions about this one, and my sister always looks at me really weird when I say this, but it's a Rod Stewart song, Do You Think I'm Sexy?
Oh, right, okay. Abby, you've got a very diverse playlist, that's for sure.
Anything I can sing along to, or maybe like even a bit of Britney Spears, Toxic, like anything I can sing along to and like annoy the garage.
So we're not going for sort of heavy house music, pumping beats?
No, I would say recently I've started listening to a bit more Georgia Smith, but I think which isn't house, but it's a bit more upbeat, high energy, but I think I need to go back to my originals from last year, maybe. Okay,
no, yeah, you're not throwing in, any Oasis or Blur or, I don't know, go on the other side of it, bit Take That?
No, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm like going through my playlist in my head now. No, I listened to a bit of Muse recently.
Okay.
The song that, I can't remember what it's called. It says about being victorious. That's like a bit hype a bit, I don't know.
Muse, yeah. Muse. Uprising?
Yeah. Uprising.
No, Muse have actually got a couple of bangers there. I'm now looking at my music playlist. Anyway, but that's a great question. Thank you very much, Emily, for that. And do you have any pre-race rituals you feel comfortable showing? That one's coming from Caro.
Nothing like in particular. I'll do my normal warm-ups. So most drivers, they'll do their stretches, warm up their neck and upper body, legs. I play like a little game with my trainer. So it's like a star-shaped thing, and you throw it and it's got different colours on the edges of the star, and she'll say blue and she'll throw it towards me, and I've got to try and catch the blue. It's actually a lot harder than it sounds.
But good for your sensory and your
like cognitive.
And cognitive mobility and all of that. Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much for all of these questions. And last one for now, in going in a complete opposite direction to being a peak athlete. This is going from Connor. Crisp sandwiches, yes or no?
When I was in school, like for sure, a good crisp sandwich. I can't say the last time I did have a crisp sandwich was. Maybe that's what we should like sort out for lunch today. Maybe I get back to my nostalgic ways.
Okay, I sort of half agree with you. Depends on what. I couldn't have a crisp sandwich just on its own.
No.
It needs to have. It depends on the filling.
Yeah,
it depends on the filling. And I'm a Marmite guy personally.
Oh.
Are there other forms of yeast extract available? Quite possibly. I'll cover myself just in case. Never thought I'd say that on the radio. Anyway, thank you very much, Connor, for getting involved in that one. Keep them coming in. F1@bbc.co.uk. Use the hashtag on Twitter. BBC F1, or you can search up Abby Pulling, and she's put a tweet out and you can give that a reply. 26 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. It's Oscar Piastri now fastest, though. He is a bit back in the last few moments. A 1:10.120 from the man who currently leads the Drivers' Championship.
Right, these guys just sit in the middle of the track.
Copy that.
That's Lawson saying these guys just sit in the middle of the track, not happy with some of the traffic in front of him. He's just making his way through turn 8 at the moment. Ahead of him is Alonso and Albon. He's just got past Hulkenberg, so we might well have been referring to the Sauber driver. But Abby, I mean, Andrew sort of mentioned it as well. This track, not too dissimilar to Hungary. In many ways, it is tight, it's narrow, it's tricky to overtake. When we go qualifying later, Q1 is going to be manic.
Yeah, especially with all drivers on circuit. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of that in this session now. It's where everyone's doing their simulations for qualifying, and whereas yesterday we had quite a few people doing long runs, so there was less people doing cool laps, whereas here you'll be doing push, cool, and then box. And in F1 they don't get the luxury of having any more. They've got to change their tyres, but it's going to be hard to manage. Lots of blind corners, I'd say, compared to Hungary. Probably more blind corners here at greater speeds. So it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be where the drivers really need clear communication with their engineers to make sure that there's no impeding happening and then penalties because of that, because we don't like to see that.
You know, you've got to be so reliant, haven't you, at times on that relationship between you and your engineer. I mean, I know these cars have mirrors, but I don't think they're the most effective at times.
No, and they always vibrate. I mean, at least in what I drive, the Formula One, they may be a bit different, but they're vibrating all the time, so you can't really see out of them anyway. And if you get a smudge on them, then it's equally as hard to look out of them. They're not the biggest things in the world. They're very small. So yes, hard to see, especially around a circuit like this. Actually, they become even more obsolete because you have the up and down nature of the circuit, and you can't change the angle. You've got to either have them angled a bit down or a bit up, depending on where you want to see. It's just not really ideal.
No, it isn't. But I think certainly that Q1 with 20 cars out on the circuit will be certainly one to join us for a little later on. We'll be on air just before 2 o'clock for that one on Sports Extra and across the 5 Live network. 23 minutes and 42 seconds remain of this final practice session before that power hour. Piastri over a 10th clear of Norris now, both on the soft tyre. Hamilton has put himself up into 3rd on the medium tyre, so after a tough day yesterday, slightly more improved so far, but still 4 tenths back. Behrman continuing to have a decent run. I would give Behrman a shout at a decent qualifying so far. Looked quick yesterday too. Up there in 4th on the hard tyre, half a second adrift. Then comes Carlos Sainz, Verstappen, Hadjar. Lawson is 8th ahead of Leclerc, who's on the outlap now, so we'll see what Leclerc has got. Then it's Albon in 11. The 2 Aston Martins, having set times on the soft tyre earlier on in this session, have dropped down to 12th and 13th ahead of Antonelli. Sonoda is 15th. Then comes Ocon. Gasly is 17th ahead of Bortoletto. Colapinto is 19th and Hulkenberg is 20th. The field spread fairly wide at the moment towards the back end of the field, but that should close up as the drivers come out for a second run. Sonoda's just found some time, but only put himself up into 12th spot as Max Verstappen gets wheeled out of his garage and drives on out into the sunlight, into the fast lane, and off he goes down towards the pit exit. And watching him head out is Rosanna Tennant.
I am watching them. A little bit of a quiet pit lane now. But interestingly, this year, the FIA have increased the speed limit in the pit lane. So it's gone from 60 kilometres an hour to 80 kilometres an hour. So a 20 kilometre change, which doesn't sound like much, but actually it's going to mean the pit stops are much faster. So is that going to push teams towards a 2-stop, or will they stay with the 1-stop that we've seen here in the past? But because it's such a tight pit lane, it's going to be pretty busy and maybe even messy when it comes to the need to double stack potentially, with teams having both drivers in the pit lane at the same time, and of course releasing into the fast lane as well. That will become a problem too. So a lot of traffic risks could play a part during the race tomorrow. Abby, what would you be doing here? A 1 or a 2-stop? And is this pit lane as tricky as we all seem to make out it is?
I mean, my car that I drove around here is much smaller, so for me the pit lane wasn't too hard to navigate, but these cars are 3 times the size of the F1 Academy car last year, so it is notoriously narrow, especially coming out of the garages. But gosh, I think it depends on the situation, to be honest. It's quite a high risk of safety cars around this circuit, so you'll probably see more than 1 stop because of that. But I wouldn't write off a 1-stop either. Who knows?
It's going to be marginal, I think, because we've seen this at a few tracks this year, haven't we, where Pirelli have gone a step softer than the previous year in an effort to try and open up those strategic options to see if we can get a 2-stop. Just looking at last year's run, Norris took the win, started on the medium tyre, went to lap 28, then put on the hard tyre to the end, whereas Lewis Hamilton, who started down in 14th,
You start, man.
Yeah, copy that.
I think that was Tsunoda. Not too happy with it. Might well have been a Racing Bulls car actually in front of him, with traffic impeding him on a quick lap. So Tsunoda not happy with that one. Last year Hamilton did a 2-stop, but started outside the top 10 from 14th. Made his way up to 8th, starting on the soft tyre, then around lap 23 went to the hard tyre, and then put on the soft tyre again at lap 48 to the end. So the other factors are going to be, well, are we going to get any kind of safety car throughout the course of this Grand Prix? There's about 50% chance of that happening. Again, weather as well, Rosanna, can play its part too.
Yeah, it really can. That sound there that you can hear is Max Verstappen just coming into the Red Bull pit box. And looking at the pit boxes, they've actually angled them down the pit lane to make it easier for the drivers to come in to hit their marks, which then actually makes it almost harder to leave, because yesterday I was watching Max Verstappen leave his pit box and he sort of didn't lose the car, but it sort of swung out a little bit like you see in F2 when the drivers make their pit stops. That was just Charles Leclerc coming in and out of the Ferrari pit box. So a bit more action down here in the pit lane, Harry. Nice to see. Very
happy for you.
Those are the kind of like little minutiae that the teams are working on, just to make sure that everything is as optimum as it can be.
Yeah, and a not so optimum moment out on track just a few moments ago between Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly, and I don't think Verstappen was particularly happy with Gasly's car placement, doing not quite a full side swipe on the Alpine driver, but just making it clear that he wasn't particularly happy with the Frenchman going into the chicane there. But Verstappen now back into the pits. Gasly still out on track. His teammate Colapinto has just come in. Grandstand's fairly full as well. I believe they've sold out actually for Sunday's Grand Prix in the general admission areas. So a track that only has one more official Grand Prix left, Abby, next year, and then it falls off the calendar, which I think a lot of people will be sad to see it go.
I think it's really sad because it's got so much history as well, this circuit, and it's for the drivers. It's so much fun. Okay, sometimes it can be hard to overtake and make it more of a strategy game. But I think the changeable conditions you can get here and just the absolute love for the sport that the Dutch fans have, the Orange Army as they call it, it is remarkable. I mean, I've stayed in Zandvoort, a 15-minute walk from the circuit, let's say, and walking through Zandvoort, the atmosphere and the love and passion that is with these fans. You know, I've attended this race as a fan myself, just because it is so iconic. So to see it go is really sad.
Yeah, it will still have one more Grand Prix remaining next season before it drops off the calendar. But you don't get, turns 3 and 14. Turn 3 Hugenholtz, where you've got, we see Charles Leclerc go through it now. 19 degrees of banking. And you talk about camber, and that is on another level. And then you go for the final corner as well. It really does slingshot you out. That's 18 degrees worth of banking. As a driver, can you describe that kind of sensation, having raced here a couple of times, and where do you feel it more? Do you feel that sort of what's the sensation between turns 3 and 14?
For sure, you feel the banking more in turn 3. Turn 3, you're pushing the entry and you break into the compression, whereas turn 14 is more so it's a high-speed corner, and eventually it banks.
I have a problem with the downshift paddle.
Okay, copy. We'll look into it.
That's Antonelli with a problem with his downshift paddle, so he will want to get back to the pits and see if he can sort that out. Indeed, he has now come back into the pits.
But yeah, as I was saying, turn 3 is a corner like no other. The only corner that I can really compare to it is the likes of Alton Park in the UK. There's a hairpin right up the other end of the circuit that's really banked, meaning you can carry a lot of speed into a really tight corner. And it is the same, but on a bigger scale here at Zandvoort, and it is a feeling like no other. And you go into it, and I mean, you don't want to close your eyes, but almost sometimes you feel like it's the best way around, because it is a really strange feeling. You're compressing into the side of the track, and as you say, you slingshot out of it, so you're accelerating into nothingness. You can't see where you're going. You have to look up to really see where you're going, and all of a sudden you find yourself on the exit, on top of this bump. On the exit, it's a crest, so it's this massive bump. You get a snap of oversteer, and it adds to the excitement, as we've seen drivers have moments on the exit there in the past.
Yeah, Lando Norris just making his way through the final corner a couple of moments ago, and now making his way through Hugenholtz, taking that high line with the sparks flying from the underside of that papaya car. That question actually came in from Emmy, so thank you very much for that. As he goes fastest in the first sector, Lando Norris. We heard from Kimi Antonelli a few moments ago on the radio. Some issues with his downshift paddle. And Rosanna, you're outside Merck now.
I've just been watching Kimi Antonelli being pushed back into the garage, and as soon as the car was linked up to the umbilical cord, as we call it, in the garage, the tyres were off, and Evan Short, the head of trackside electronics for Mercedes, was straight over to the cockpit to talk to Antonelli, and he took the steering wheel out, was then joined by some other engineers to take a look at it, and it's now been put back in. So whatever was stuck has hopefully been remedied, and Kimi Antonelli is sitting waiting in the cockpit. No tyres on the car at the moment, so not going out in a hurry. But it's amazing, isn't it? Everyone on site quickly able to react and hopefully right any wrongs.
Straight back to work for the Formula One teams, up and down the paddock. Any issues, and they are hot on it, as Norris now retakes the top spots by quite some margin. 1.1 seconds the gap, so on a fresh set of soft tyres. The track ramping up as well. We're getting in to the last quarter really of this final practice session, so expecting to see the fast laps now come in as Max Verstappen makes his way through Tarzan, the right-hander of turn 1, on the soft tyre. Question on the email f1@bbc.co.uk, Chris from Gosport. Abby, do you think that Norris has the killer instinct to win the championship?
I think so. I think Lando has been criticised a lot recently, or at the start of the season, because of his people say his mentality and how he goes about things, but I would say his emotions are his biggest strength and his biggest weakness. I kind of fall victim of that as well, having big emotions, which you can see sometimes, and being very hard on himself, and it's nice to see a Formula 1 driver that has similar things to me, because you see Oscar with his ice cold kind of mentality, and yeah, it's very unique as well, and I think yeah, for sure. I mean, what we forget is Lando. He's been in the junior categories and he has won championships. That's how he's got to where he is now. He's although it's been a while, he's no stranger to being at the top of the sheets and to being a race-winning driver and championship-winning driver as well. Of course, not at the Formula One level as of yet, but he's now in that position where he is challenging for that World Drivers' Championship, and I think especially this second half of the season has really brought that killer instinct, and you can see he's really got a different energy about him, I think, the last couple of races and going into the second half of the season.
We talk about different energy. Piastri now has just crossed the line on his soft tyre run, 2/10, almost 2.5 tenths adrift of his teammate Lando Norris. That's a margin.
Yeah, and I think some of this newfound confidence for Norris has come from the changes that McLaren have made for Lando. As we heard at the start of the season, he was really struggling to get to grips with the changes that the team had made, whereas Oscar seemed to really, really revel in it. And that just also goes to show the kind of loyalty that lies with McLaren and the driver team dynamic. They really, really are working together, and they've tried to help Norris and listen to his feedback, and not just listened but then acted on that feedback as well, and it's showing in the performances that he's having since the change at Montreal. That
is a really strong lap time though from Lando Norris on the soft tyre. Russell has popped himself up into third, 8 tenths adrift from the McLarens. Then Verstappen 9 tenths, Stroll is fifth, 1.1 seconds. Then Hadjar has just crossed the line in sixth, Tsunoda is seventh, Hamilton 8th, Behrman 9th, Hulkenberg the top 10. So the quick running happening now. Decent lap time from Hadjar in the Racing Bulls, a man who has raced here before in Formula 2. Now, I wonder, it's a decent margin that Norris has over Piastri, 2 tenths on quick runs of the soft tyre. Did Piastri make any kind of mistake? We're just hearing a replay from him now. Out of Hugenholtz, turn 3, looked a little bit ragged.
Yeah, that's that bump that we were talking about earlier. A big snap on the exit, although not dire, it wouldn't have helped him, but there is a lot of bottoming going over that crest out of turn 3, and it can always just catch you out. If you're a bit too low in the banking, you've got to try and hold that white line for as long as possible, as high as possible.
Looking at the analysis after yesterday's running, Norris was quicker than Piastri in turn 3, turn 9 as well, the right-hander, and then the sequence between 11, 12, the chicane, and going into 13. So, and that was looking a little bit tight between. That was the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso coming into the pits and being squeezed right up to the pit wall by the Mercedes of George Russell, I believe it was. And we'll have to get another look at that. It was happening in the back of shot, but and Russell had to abort the pit lane entry. Alonso has made it into the pit lane and just paused outside of his pit box and now continues on. That was a bit hairy. Yeah,
it looked like Fernando was pushing into the pit lane, practicing for the race tomorrow, and didn't expect a slowly moving George Russell just nonchalantly going into the pit lane, and yeah, they both, just two didn't go into one, both wanted to go into the pit lane together at big varying speeds.
So Alonso comes out of the final corner, he moves over, he sort of slingshots himself out of the right-hander.
They don't look at the mirror, man. Yeah.
That's Alonso saying they don't look at the mirrors. So calm and relaxed. So Russell's going slow and he's ambling towards the pit lane entry, and then he sees Alonso last minute, jerks to the left, and then realises he can't go into the pit lane entry and carries on for another lap. It's a tricky one because Alonso was approaching at such a rapid speed out of the final corner. And the way it kind of slingshots you out, you are sort of in the middle of the track at that point. And then he was carrying such high speed. Russell, low speed, was angled towards the pit lane. But I don't know, how would you read that? How do you read that one as a driver, Abby?
I think there was just two different people there with two different intentions. Russell was just going, as we say, quite gently to the pit lane, nothing to prove. And Fernando, I think, was potentially practicing finding that pit limiter. It is a thing that we do practice for things like this, getting your braking reference going into the pit lane is a thing. And yeah, I just think there was just a miscommunication in that sense between the two.
Yeah, so Alonso was on a hot lap, so in the end the result was the opposite for each driver. Alonso didn't want to come into the pit lane at the end, and did. Russell wanted to come into the pit lane and had to stay out for another lap, so neither of them got what they wanted on that one, but thankfully no major harm done, although that is now noted by race control. Pit lane entry incident involving cars 63 and 14 has been noted, so they will have to, or we'll see if that gets elevated first of all.
Well, I would say in that case, if Fernando was on a push lap, he should have stayed to the left of George. It was very clear that George was going into the pit lane. If he wanted to cross the finish line, he definitely went the wrong direction for that.
Well, it was getting hairy coming into the pit lane. Rosanna, you're there now.
I am, and I'm just thinking back to yesterday being in the pit lane, Harry, because it was George Russell again who was getting caught up with the altercation he had with Oscar Piastri, who actually has been fined €5,000 by the stewards. So George Russell needs to keep it clean from now on in, doesn't need to be getting tangled with anyone else in the pit lane or out on track.
Good place to be though, in the pit lane for this one. Drama everywhere.
Oh, it's an absolute thriller. I've got a little bit of popcorn, I'm sitting back and I'm just enjoying it all unfold before me.
Oh, do you fancy a job swap? That sounds quite nice. I know how much you love commentating.
Oh, it's an absolute fave of mine.
6.5 minutes left of this final practice session before qualifying, which will get going. The green light for quali will be at 2 o'clock this afternoon. You can hear that on Sports Extra and across the 5 Live network. Norris is fastest, but we're seeing still some final soft tyre runs being set, although Antonelli's not exactly lighting the world up as he crosses the line in 16th spot, down in 1.7 seconds off. It's Norris 2.5 tenths clear of Oscar Piastri. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things, but in Formula One, that is a huge margin to have over your own teammate. That pit lane entry incident involving Russell and Alonso will be investigated after the session, so they'll have some talking to do to the stewards post-practice. Russell is third. Sainz very quietly having a good run of it, up in fourth.
From P3 to P11, it's really close. It's within 5 tenths of a second, but then the two McLarens are then another 6 tenths ahead of the Mercedes of George Russell in P3. I think the performance, I mean, of course, this isn't qualifying, so everyone's doing different things, but this is as close as we're going to get before we go into qualifying later on this afternoon. I think that just goes to show the performance that this McLaren has had this year, and they're just not stopping. No one is able to get any closer to them.
Yeah, I think, well, if you take out the two McLarens, it's incredibly tight, isn't it? They are romping away with it right now, indeed. They've pretty much got 1.5 hands on the Constructors' Trophy already. McLaren 299 points clear of Ferrari in the Constructors, looking to do the double. The reigning Constructors champions, McLaren. Verstappen is 5th, Leclerc 6th, Albon is 7th, Stroll, Hadjar, Lawson make up the top 10. Then comes Tsunoda, Bortoletto is 12th, make that 13th as Alonso pops himself up into 10th. Hamilton 14th, Behrman, Hülkenberg, Antonelli, Ocon on the 2 Alpines, Gasly and Colapinto languishing at the back of the fields. Worth a mention, I think, about the Williams drivers quietly going on about their business. Sainz is in 4th, Albon is 7th after a tricky day yesterday. He was another one that fell foul of the gravel and actually had to throw a front wing in the bin after he nudged it against the barrier at the same time. But I think this will be an important second half of the season for Carlos Sainz, won't it? He's still another one that's gelling, getting to know a new team, and all of us have been so impressed with how Alex Albon has not even responded, and just been flat out, straight out the gates and beating Carlos Sainz so far.
I think Alex is one of the most underrated drivers, I think, on the grid, to be honest. I think he does a really great job, and he's one of the few that have, after that Red Bull second seat, has come back, and he's come back fighting and still in F1. One of the, obviously not with one of the front level teams, but he's working away in creating that front level team for Williams and developing them and getting them better and giving them really strong feedback. And I think the team with James Vowles, Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon, it's a really big force to be reckoned with, and their rate of progression, especially at this end part of the regulations, is something to be really, really impressed with, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, Carlos needs to try and get closer and closer to Alex, but in a first year of a car, it's no surprise to be behind someone that's been driving it for a couple of years. It will be next year, I think, that will be the biggest test for him.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Carlos Sainz, though, has a good record round here. He's never started outside the top 10 in Zandvoort. He's finished in the points at every Dutch Grand Prix he has started this year. He's got 6 Grand Prix points finishes to his name so far, but hasn't scored any points since Canada. Meanwhile, Alex Albon, 9 points finishes so far this season. And a few moments ago, Lewis Hamilton, we just saw the man that replaced Carlos Sainz at Ferrari, ran wide going through Hugenholtz, turn 3, had to bail out of that one, and just see the 2 Mercedes drivers and slow-mo replay shots attacking the curb in the chicane at turn 12, and just how much that, particularly the rear left tyre, is just vibrating, Abby.
Yeah, and they're using quite a bit less curb than Max Verstappen is actually around there. They're not quite hooking onto the gravel. That gravel there has actually had some kind of filler in it, so the gravel there isn't loose. It's a solid entity, although it looks like it will be chucked up. If they didn't do that, it would make an absolute mess. There'll be lots of safety cars or red flags in the sessions to have to clean up the gravel, which we have seen in the past in various other categories. So what the circuit has done to get rid of that is put a lacquer, I don't really know what it's called, and it makes it then solid, so then you can hook that curb and drive on the gravel, which Max does, but the Mercedes don't do so much.
Well, see what Alpines conversely just crossed the line, improve slightly but still stay at the bottom of the timing tower. Right, just less than a minute left of this session. Rosanna's about to get kicked out of the pit lane, so we'll head down to you.
Yes, absolutely. We are escorted out. It is such beautiful weather now, though, Harry. Beautiful blue skies, a few clouds away in the distance. Lando Norris in the pit lane, just about to be released from his McLaren garage. Looking so strong, the British driver, in all the sessions so far. Looks like he's going to have the sort of advantage heading into qualifying. And there he goes on soft tyres, and he's heading out on track. Glorious sunshine. It's going to last till qualifying, so I'm afraid you haven't got your wish of a little bit of rain to spice things up.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be going out there to do a practice start at the end of the session, and all the cars quite slow in these final 10 seconds, trying to weave their way past each other. Lap 1 here on race day is always a spectacle to behold, and how there is not more carnage sometimes, I question, but the clock has chimed down to 0 as the checkered flag is out at the end of practice 3. And we're just getting another look here. Kimi Antonelli coming out of the final corner and having to back out of it massively. He's got a slow Fernando Alonso, a slow...
Man, this guy is a complete idiot, huh?
Totally agree.
Apologies, it was Lance. It was Lance Stroll ahead of him, and Kimi Antonelli was behind, and it was the Red Bull of I think it was Tsunoda.
Yeah, he blocked me. Okay, copy.
I can't quite figure out why Lance is calling Kimi an idiot when they were 2 abreast on the straight, not letting him pass to finish his push lap.
There's all sorts of carnage happening in the closing stages. A near miss in the pit lane between the Williams of Alex Albon and one of the other race didn't quite catch the back of it, but one of the other cars out there. But everyone take a breather. Everyone calm down. The checkered flag is out. FP3 is done and dusted. We'll be back for qualifying just before 3 o'clock this afternoon. But it's 1, 2 and 3. FP1 fastest, FP2 fastest, FP3 fastest for Lando Norris, and this time he's managed to put a bit of daylight between himself and his teammate Oscar Piastri. 2.5 tenths, just under that is Piastri back, but the 2 McLarens are well clear of the rest of the field. 8 tenths then to George Russell in 3rd, then Sainz, Max Verstappen, the top 5. And after that, in 6th, it's Charles Leclerc. Alex Albon, 7th. Lance Stroll ended the session in 8th ahead of Isaac Hadjar. Fernando Alonso makes it 2 Aston Martins inside the top 10, with Liam Lawson 11th ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Gabriel Bortoleto 13th. Lewis Hamilton ended the day 14th ahead of Ollie Behrman. Hulkenberg 16th. Antonelli 17th. Ocon 18th for Haas, with the 2 Alpines of Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto 19th and 20th. So another session not without its drama, but no one skirted off into the gravel this time and found themselves beached or in the barriers. So a positive step to take, but certainly positive outlook for McLaren, Abby.
Yeah, they're definitely the ones to beat going into qualifying this afternoon. I mean, who's it going to be if anyone can take McLaren from the top spot in qualifying? Do we think Verstappen, home hero, can rein it back and bring home the pole?
It's going to be nip and tuck, isn't it, between Norris and Piastri. You have to say right now momentum is going Lando Norris's way. That M word that we all love to use so much. I think it will be a look at the battle of best of the rest so far, and there's certainly fine margins between both sides of the McLaren garage. The Red Bull of Max Verstappen still in the mix, but not as far forward as he would like to be, especially on home soil. George Russell as well, man, you could never rule out always getting the most out of that car, and he's just sitting behind the 2 Mercedes in 3rd, and he's always the guy that gets that podium, isn't he? If things go his way, if the chips fall his way, and if there's carnage ahead of him, you'll see Russell nick a podium more often than not.
Definitely, and people call it luck, but I think you make your own luck, and he's always the one that puts himself in the position that if things do go wrong, he will be there. And yeah, I mean, with Max, I just feel like you can never write him off. You know, even though this morning he's not really there, we probably won't be thinking that he's got the possibility of being on the front row, but I just always feel, especially in front of his home crowd, you could just absolutely never write him off putting in an absolute stormer of a lap.
Positive result too for Carlos Sainz in the Williams, finishes just behind the Mercedes of George Russell. He'll be wanting to carry that forward. Fastest in all 3 practice sessions so far, Lando Norris, but in FP3 he managed to put a bit more daylight between himself and teammate Oscar Piastri. 2.5 tenths clear as we head into qualifying later on this afternoon. The fight for pole very much between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. George Russell in the Mercedes was just behind in 3rd. Right, that just about does it for us. Listeners on 5 Sports Extra will be joining BBC Radio Wales for their coverage of Canada against Wales in the Women's Rugby World Cup. But for now, this has been an ING production for BBC Radio 5 Live.